Good morning, good morning,
Morning.
good morning, good morning, everybody. It is that time, one of my favorite times of the week, where we get together, a group of entrepreneurs, like-minded entrepreneurs that are here together to read, dissect, and learn from some great books. And this morning, we are going to, let me just see if I can, all right, turn that on there. This morning, we're going to dive into, I believe it's chapter 13 that we're on in the book, Get Excited or Stay Broke by Dr. Gerald Parker. And so that begins on page 48. So that's interesting. Ron Copeland is transcribing this call. So for those of you who want a copy of today's transcript, contact Ron.
I didn't mean to. I have no idea how I did it.
That's okay. That's all good. It's all
We'll see
good.
what happens.
Let us know if it's a good result.
Okay.
Anyway, just remember that that this is an interactive. It's not just a reader, but it's also a conversation. So as you read stuff, write stuff down. Your ahas. Because the real purpose of this reading group is not just social, but also to grow and learn from it. So take notes, write down your questions, or pop them in the chat. That's how I'll know that there are questions developing. So pop them in the chat. And while you're at it, and by the way, thank you very much for the happy birthday wishes. I did have a blessed day, very nice. Had a regular work day during the day, then went for a 4-mile run, and then had a surprise dinner prepared by Erica and Jordan that they went all out. And so they were successful in making me feel very special. So it was a great day. It was a great day. I'm still in denial as to the age part. I think there's an error. I'm kind of contact some authorities and find out where the error was, because the age that they say I am and the age that I feel I am are distant apart. So back to the reading. Again, we are on chapter 13, page 48. And the title of the chapter is Momentum Over Motivation. And this is good because as many of us will have learned over the years, that momentum is you doing something and moving in a direction. Motivation comes and goes, and it is often much more motivational than it really is inspirational. So anyway, I begin. Let me tell you another truth that will set you free. You're waiting for something that doesn't exist. You're waiting for the motivation to show up. You want to feel energized, inspired, and excited before you take action. You want to feel good, and that's why you are stuck. You have a choice to make. Will you chase a feeling, or will you build a force? And there you go. There's the fork in the road. Are you going to guide your life by emotions and what I feel like doing or not doing, or move yourself? The flaw in the motivational model. Motivation is alive. It's a fickle, emotional impulse that will leave you the moment a task gets hard. You feel tired or your plan hits a wall. Motivation is what you have when you're watching a great speech. Momentum is what you have when you're already in the arena swinging. Relying on motivation is a losing strategy because your feelings are the most unreliable compass you'll ever use. You don't have control over whether you feel like doing something. The world's most successful people don't wake up every day feeling like a winner. They feel tired. They feel discouraged. They feel just as much doubt as you do. The difference is that they don't wait for a feeling to take action. The person who waits for motivation to act will be a person who waits forever. And that's a writer downer. Momentum, the unstoppable force. Momentum is a powerful, self-sustaining force built by consistent action, not by fleeting inspiration. Think of a rocket launching into space. It takes a massive amount of fuel and fire to escape the gravitational pull of the Earth. It's a violent, difficult, and loud process. But once it breaks free, it cruises effortlessly through the vacuum of space. Your life is a rocket launch. All the small discipline acts we've talked about, the daily checklist, the weekly plan, the goals you've set, are the fire and fuel you need to escape the gravity of your old habits. You don't need to feel motivated to write the first sentence. You just need to write the first sentence. You don't need to feel motivated to go to the gym. You just need to put on your shoes and walk out the door. The motivation, the energy, and the drive will come after you start, not before. Your emotions will follow your actions, not the other way around. This is the simple, undeniable secret to high performance. This is a law of human psychology. It's called the habit loop. So, what is the habit loop? It continues on the top of page 50. Cue. Something triggers the action. For example, your alarm goes off. Routine. The action you take following the cue. Example, getting out of bed immediately. And number 3, reward. The positive feeling you get from the action. For example, a sense of accomplishment or more energy. See, most people wait for the reward before they start the routine. A winner builds the routine and trusts that the reward will follow. Now, before I get into the next section of the chapter called How to Build an Unstoppable Momentum, how many of you have experienced that difference between momentum and motivation? I know I do every time I go running. I know I honestly, as much as I have been running for years and know the benefit of running, when it comes time to go for my run, I don't really feel like it. I am tired, or I have stuff that I should be doing. I got this to-do list that's pulling me over here. But the one thing that I know is that once I start my run, I usually get lost in my run, in my thoughts and in the feeling and the breathing. And when I'm done, the feeling is great that I did it, that I accomplished, that I didn't let my feelings get in the way. So who else has had an experience like that? Maybe with a different activity. You can either raise your hand or just come right on. Fernando, good morning.
Eric, good morning. Happy birthday, by the way. It's great to have you here this Saturday morning. And that topic that we're talking about right now, I know exactly what you mean. And I think as we start to move forward with age, because I've been working out since I was 18, before I didn't care about injuries, right? I would just get excited, get at the gym and do my workout and push myself. Now it's, more like, let me prepare mentally and emotionally before I start my workout. And as you alluded to, when it comes to running, because that's how I start, right? I go to the sauna first and then I run. The mental preparation in the sauna is crucially important. I massage my knees, I stretch myself, and I'm preparing in building that mode of my mindset that I know that I'm going to go tackle that machine and start my run. So that feeling, I feel you. You don't want to do it, but then eventually you're like, wait a minute. I know that if I do it, it's going to make me feel better, and it's part of my discipline. So I run a mile. That's what I aim to achieve always, a mile in less than 8 minutes. If I'm doing 6 minutes and a half, I broke a record that day, a mile. So I conclude with this. It's not how many miles you can run in a day, but I do run 365 miles in a year because of discipline. Thank you, Eric. That was awesome.
Great example. And it's interesting, everybody will have their own style. Um, I have, I've never heard or never even thought of going into the sauna first. To me, the sauna actually is the reward. So a lot of times I'll do my workout or whatever, and then my wind down is in the sauna. But it's cool. And by the way, it is I love saunas, and one of my goals is to have a sauna in my house so that when I go for my runs and run or whether I go for a swim, that I have the sauna there. But that's actually a great idea because you got to warm up your body before you fully stretch and strain your muscles. So it's a great idea. Um, Dr. Parker, good morning.
Great morning, Eric. Hey, Fernando just gave me a great idea because I, like you, the sauna is the reward after the workout, right? But
Yep.
maybe I'll try that first and kind of change the way I do things. It makes a lot of sense. So, but yeah, I definitely follow your lead and do the same thing. I look forward to the sauna. I love it. And just like you, my goal is to have one in my home. Man, because it is the greatest feeling that you can ever have once you're done with that workout. But maybe I'll try starting there first and then begin to work out. And I can kind of understand it because it pretty much works just like what we're talking about, right? A lot of people have to get motivated before they start doing whatever that thing is that they desire to do. But if you're waiting on that, you could be waiting for a long time, right? So you have to find the
Yep.
discipline to create the momentum yourself and start. As you mentioned, as you run, there are many days that you don't feel like doing it, but once you do it and begin to get into it, it begins to feel good. You get lost in it. And so, but you didn't wait to be motivated to do it. Now, how many days have you not wanted to do it? And if you were waiting on motivation, you'd probably be still sitting on the couch now. And so that's the difference in the way we operate our lives, our goals, our dreams. We can't wait to be motivated or inspired. We have to find it within ourselves to start the process, and then it all comes together. It is amazing how it works, though. But again, I mean, the whole book and everything we do in life just comes right back, Eric, to the basic idea of discipline, right? You've got to find a way to discipline yourself to get these things done, whether it's achieving a goal or reaching a financial milestone, building a business. You've got to find the discipline. And that's the separation, I think, between those who succeed, I mean, in a major way, and those who never really succeeded anything. So back to you guys.
Yeah, and this conversation is actually very important because, as you can see, it's pretty much universal. We all go through, our day with certain things that we enjoy doing, and then and some of them are low payoff items. Maybe I need to vacuum, maybe I need to go, organize my shelf or something. And then we have those tasks that we need to do, the high payoff tasks. And if we rely on just, I don't feel like doing that right now. And that's why, on the radio show, I always talk about the three beliefs. And, Dr. Parker, you and I always talk about it on our Wednesday night, business presentation. I believe everyone should own a home. That's why I dedicated my entire career to helping people achieve home ownership. But number two is to have that plan, have a written financial plan. But really, what I want to emphasize is to have a plan, period. Because another little dopamine hit that you get is when you check something off your list, right? So sometimes just getting through the task so you can go back and check that thing off your list. Just be careful not to put things on your list that are easy, low payoff things so that you can get lots of checks. But the fact of the matter is that you got to have a plan, because then you don't have to worry about momentum by having a plan and a list of things with the time. And I'm getting even more military about time blocking. You know, if it's not on the calendar, most often it doesn't happen. And now I'm trying to see, and if I can't time block it on the calendar, you know, I could have a lot of things on my list that I have to keep transferring to the next day, to the next day, to the next day. But if it's on the calendar with a specific time and a specific amount of time to do it in, then I'm crushing it. So that's kind of a thought. Monifa, good morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, Eric. Happy belated birthday. When was your birthday?
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay, so happy belated birthday.
Thank
Happy
you.
solar return. God bless you for being here on your birthday weekend because you could have been anywhere in the world sipping on a mocktail or a real tail, a cocktail. But you're here with us, dedicated as always. Good morning, everybody, and all the leaders on the line. Sorry for my absence last Saturday. I had a women's wealth and wellness event, which was nothing shorter than phenomenal. I got to really hang out with young ladies that are moving and shaking in business and got to share, you know, what I do and had building some relationships. So awesome. But this chapter here is like really hitting home for me because it's not giving you or us any new information. It's exposing our execution, right? Most people think that they need another strategy, another training, another breakthrough, but the truth is most people already know enough to win. They're just not doing it consistently, right? I could say ouch right there. Let me explain. Excitement will start your journey, but only discipline will pay you. um we've all seen it. People get fired. um we've seen people like they say this is the moment, and by Wednesday all of that is gone. Why? Because excitement is emotional, and emotions don't build income, structure does. So here's the real question: why are daily things like supposed to be non-negotiable for us? Not what you plan to do, but what you actually doing every single day that produces whatever outcome you want, right? Because if you don't have like a daily exposure as it pertains to us in MWR, we don't have daily exposures. If we don't have follow-ups, we don't have conversations, then our business really don't have any hope. And that's like the hard truth about it. You're not exposing, you're not sharing it with people. I don't know how we expect to win, you know? And here's the part that might sting a little. Some people aren't stuck, they just are inconsistent. Restarting every Monday, restarting every new month. That's not strategy. That's just a bad cycle. So here's what I want to take from this chapter is stop chasing motivation. Start building systems that can follow even when you don't feel like it. Because the people who win in this space aren't the most talented, they are the most consistent, right? We're all the same. We just have different genres of life that we're in, that we're a part of before we even came here. So some of us are just like already structured. That word structure, because I heard Brian House use that word structure this week. That word structure is really big in this motivation, momentum topic. So I'll leave you guys with this. Interest sounds like excitement, but commitment looks like repetition. Okay. And your income will always follow your habits, not your intention. So thank you so much for having me share.
Great point, Monifa. First of all, I just want to say something that whenever I see your name and I see you speak, you are an incredible individual. You light up the room when you come in. Your energy, no, you're just amazing, and I absolutely love that you're part of our group. So that was an aside. But your point about interest, right? You know, a lot of people are interested, but they're not
Yes.
committed. You know,
Yes.
they have that old saying, right? That you know, when it comes to breakfast, the chicken is interested, you can have an unlimited supply of eggs, but the pig is committed, right? The bacon, it's fully committed.
Right.
And that's a really a great point. Another point that I kind of heard in what you were talking about, Dr. Parker is a veteran. And so thank you for your service there. But if the military isn't famous for being intelligent or motivated, they're incredibly famous for being consistent, right? When they set up a system, and the world over, there ain't no better force than the US Marines, right? And
Yes.
people make fun of them, even, that the grunts, that they're not smart. But who do you call when you want to get something done militarily?
It's
And
the first, they're first, the first in line.
First in line, ready to go. They know what to do and they execute. Imagine if you had a military that you call them up in the morning and you say, hey, who feels like going in the war?
Right.
Nobody, right?
None of them.
Well, maybe there's a few, but the point is that if it weren't for the momentum that is built because of systems, nothing would get done. I want to recommend another book, by the way, and it's a book that I read on a flight one year when I was going over to Europe, and it was a easy read, just like this book. But don't confuse, an easy read with not having a lot of substance, because the book is called The Dip by Seth Godin. And if you picture, if you've ever been, near mountains, usually before the mountains, there's a hill, right? So you go up a hill and then you might go down a little bit of a valley, and then you get to the mountain, which is the real climb. And human motivation is a lot like that. And the book, The Dip, I highly recommend it. And I recommended it to everybody that I've ever coached. Why? Because when something is presented, something new, something, really cool. Yes, Monifa, The Dip by Seth, it's Godin, Godin. And, people are always excited, especially in real estate. They go to these real estate seminars, they play the loud music, they show pictures of fancy cars and jets and big houses, get everybody motivated. But here's what happens. And then people buy these courses or sign up for coaching. And over, what would happen is that I would teach something to someone, and then I would say, okay, now that you have this information, go do it. And sometimes, let's say there wasn't any resistance to that, they would go do it, but then they would realize that there's work involved. And then so the excitement starts to fade away. So if you imagine, you get excited, and then the excitement starts to fade when you get rejection on the phone, you can't find a property, you can't raise the money, and then that it fades. Now, this is where most people quit, okay? And the point is that you can't quit. If you have that process and you have that commitment, like you were talking about, Monifa, then you go through the dip. And that the whole book is about getting through the dip, because once you get through the dip, and now the rejection and the work doesn't seem so bad or so hard, then people tend to take off and become very, very successful. And that's why that book is so good. I always also explain getting started. Nowadays, you don't see this happen very, very often. But remember when you used to have to push a car to get it started? The battery wasn't so strong, and you would get a bunch of friends and they would push. Someone would sit in the driver's seat, and then they would pop it into first gear, and then it would go. But if you remember, when you a car, even in neutral, 2,000 plus pounds, a single person can move that car if it's on a flat surface. But you kind of have to turn around, put your back into it, and push, and it's a lot of effort, and it doesn't seem like a lot of effort is getting anywhere. And then the car starts to lurch forward, slowly at first, But then what happens? You turn around and you start pushing forward with two hands, and you can actually make it pick up speed. But to get it from stopped, that's where this whole chapter is all about: momentum versus motivation.
Wow,
You
that's
know?
good.
Yeah, and so that metaphor of pushing a stopped car or a rock, right, a boulder, is where the rubber really does literally hit the road, and that's how we get stuff done. And then you can push the car to get it started, and then the engine takes over, and then everything is good. So, any other comments before I finish the chapter with the instructions on how to build unstoppable momentum?
Eric,
Cool. Yes.
hey, real quick, you mentioned the Marines. Hoorah, simplify, always
Hoorah.
faithful.
That's right. That's right, Dr. Parker. So how to build unstoppable momentum.
Hey, Eric.
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't get unmuted, but I am now. I've been researching the concept because someone said it, some psychologist said it, and I said, no, that's not the way. You got to be motivated first. And she said, nope, you got it wrong. She says the motivation comes after the action. You got to get action first, which goes back to my favorite saying, nothing happens until something moves, which is Einstein. So maybe those two are right. One of the things I've noticed is that I do better work standing up as opposed to sitting down. So a lot of times I'll stand up and I get motivated to do something. And it's like, okay, maybe these persons are right. And then I heard it someplace else in a very good source, and they said the same thing, which I said, no, you got to get motivated to get up. No, you get up first. You may think about it, but you first must do the movement first. So that was a twist for me, and I'm still thinking on that one.
Yeah, and that's where, Nike, think about that brilliant tagline they had: just do it, right?
Yep.
That's right to this point. They know that you ache, you're tired, you're discouraged, but just do it. And after you just do it, the feeling is incredible, the accomplishments happen. So it's amazing. Short chapter, but very, very important. In fact, maybe one of the most important chapters, because without that movement and getting started, and if you ever feel depressed, go for a walk. Watch how you become less depressed or less sad. The more that you put your body into motion, it overrides the emotion. So, absolutely good point, Ron. Thank you.
Welcome.
Eric, lastly, I think, see, the thing about it is when you have the need to do something, you don't need to be motivated. Especially if you see a family member or a friend in danger, you become so creative because you know for a fact that if you don't do anything, that person is going to be at risk. So when you find the need or what you have to do, you're just going to do it. And creativity appears. That's how it is. And sometimes we have to really re-engage back in the reason why we start something so we don't lose the motivation, because the motivation has a lot to do with starting something. And then as you start to progress, you got to keep reminding yourself through the discipline habits of why you engage in something. So I just wanted to add that to what we're talking about here. It's an amazing topic. I guess everybody has done everything that I needed to take notes on, and it's pretty thrilling to hear where we're going with this chapter.
And what's crazy? If you think about the actual, real life experience, when you get motivated, but you don't do anything, the motivation inevitably fades. And then what replaces that motivation is usually the disappointment, right? So you go from a high to a low, and then you need somebody. Motivation is external, right? But the momentum is internal. But on the other hand, if you use momentum and you do something, you may start out slow, lethargic, kind of resisting, but everybody who has spoken today said the same thing. Once you do it, you feel great, you feel accomplished, you feel more energetic. Um, you know, I was just thinking this week, I from time to time get hired to become what's called an expert witness in court. So where I go and help verify what attorneys are trying to prove with valuations of properties and things like that. And I have to do a report in advance. And the idea of doing the report is not the fun part. Being in court is a lot of fun when you're on the right side of the case. But that report, I tell you, it sat on my desk for a couple of days because I wanted it to be perfect, right? I want the attorney to be proud of my work. I wanted this. And I realized that, again, that perfection is the enemy of progress. And so, I finally got I put it all together and I sent him over the rough draft. And he goes, "Oh, this is great. All you need to do now is sign it." And I'm going like, that was my freaking rough draft. And he said it was great. So again, sometimes you just got to do it. Just do it. So how do you do it? Let's get to the page 50 of chapter 13. Number 1, kill the big task with the small win. Maybe that's what I was just talking about. Stop looking at the entire mountain you have to climb. Focus on the very first step. If you want to write a book, don't think about the entire manuscript. Think about writing for 10 minutes. If you want to launch a business, don't think about the entire business plan. Think about writing a single email. Momentum begins with a small, undeniable win. So number 1, kill the big task with a small win. Break it up into small chunks. Number 2, stack the wins. Use your checklists and trackers from the previous chapters to prove to yourself that you are in control. Every check mark is a win. Every win builds confidence. Every confident action builds momentum. And the more wins you stack, the harder it becomes to break the chain. So stack the wins. Don't break the chain. Monifa, consistency is the fuel of momentum. The most important act you can do is show up every single day. No matter how you feel, it is your non-negotiable commitment to yourself. Your emotions will betray you. Your actions will not. Stop waiting for a feeling. Start building a force. Your freedom is not found in the emotional high of motivation. It's found in the unstoppable forward motion of momentum. And that concludes the bottom of page 51. That concludes chapter 13. Any comments about chapter 13? Any further comments, I should say? We've had some great comments already for chapter 13. And we're rounding the final corner of this book. There are 18 chapters. We're about to start number 14. Any comments? Thoughts, ideas, ahas, or I'll start.
Eric.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dr. G.W. Parker, go ahead, sir. Okay, real quick before he does. He opened his microphone again. No, but real quick. I want everybody to think about, because this reminds me exactly what Dr. G.W. Parker put together here in this chapter, which is kill the big tasks with small wins. This reminds me of a book that I read, and it really allowed me to organize. I think it was probably my 5th book. It was by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits, something like that. I don't have it here
The
with
7
me, but
habits
he
of
talks
highly
about,
effective people.
yes, sir. There's a quiz or a test that he asks you to do in regards to putting a bucket in front of you, right? An imaginary bucket. And then he gives you the priorities in how to organize putting things together in the bucket. So he talks about rocks and then everything else, right? He said, how would you start if you had rocks, pebbles, sand, and water? in front of you to fill up the bucket without making a mess. And when I learned that, and it's something that I'd like to see if anybody can respond in the chat, how would you start? It's got to be in 5 seconds. Don't Google it. How would you start filling up that bucket? Would you start with rocks or water, sand? How would you start if anybody can put it in the chat? Because what you just alluded to, Eric, and you know where I'm going with this, is prioritizing things so you can fill in everything else, right, that goes with it. Anybody? Nobody answered. Okay.
I know the answer, but I'm not going to spoil it.
There you go. David said rocks. David, you probably read this book. But anyhow, that's where we're going with this. It's kill the big task with small wins. And you know what's hard in sales, Eric? You know where I'm going with this. As we start to run, right, we got to prepare ourselves and think about, how great it's going to be after we're done. Is picking up the phone or having to contact somebody. That is the hardest thing to do. But once you do it, which is the biggest task in sales, you build momentum through the process. You don't even think about rejection anymore. You're just flowing with the numbers until someone says, yes, let me show up to the event. So I think that's how we start with the rocks. And then, we start breaking things down to the point where the second task would be something smaller, the pebbles, and then way much smaller, the sand, until we fill everything up with the water. So that's pretty much what we got to prioritize in our daily agenda. Thanks, Harry, for sharing. Appreciate this. Awesome wrap up of the chapter.
Great point. Great point. And watching that video of that is, when he starts out and he fills it up and then he says, "Is it full?" And everyone start at first when they don't know what's going on, they go, "Yeah, it's full." And he goes, "Well, no, and we can add this, and then we can add that." And so by the end of that demonstration, it really proves the point that there's usually a lot more potential if you prioritize and make and plan in advance. Dr. Parker.
Eric, just one quick comment. My takeaway from this chapter, bottom of page 50, your emotions will betray you. Your actions will not. That's it, guys. Case closed.
Big.
End of the day. That's where we are.
Drop the mic. Your emotions will betray you. Your actions will not. And that's not a bad little affirmation for every morning. Just understand, my emotions, I can't always control, because it might be because I'm tired. It might be because of an outside influence, but my actions, I absolutely can control. So, and by the way, Dr. Parker, a great companion to this book would be a workbook with all the forms and the checklists and everything in it. So just a little business idea there for you.
Yeah, baby.
Chapter 14, the small win streak tracker and don't break the chain chart. Know the truth. Motivation is a feeling, but momentum is a force. That force is built one day at a time, with one small win at a time. The problem is, it's easy to lose sight of your progress and slip back into old habits. Your mind can trick you into thinking your small efforts don't matter. This tracker is your antidote to that lie. This tool turns your invisible momentum into a visible, undeniable streak. I highlighted that. It's a simple, powerful visual representation of your commitment. The goal is simple. Start a streak and don't break the chain. Every single day that you check a box, you're not just completing a task, you're building a habit, a foundation, and a winning mindset. This is how you go from being someone who tries to being someone who does. Use this chart as your personal scoreboard. Pin it to somewhere you can't ignore it, on your wall, on your mirror, on your refrigerator. Let your commitment stare you in the face. The work begins now. And at the top of page 53, you see the chart, the small wins tracker, and how you list your number one small win to track, right? This is breaking down the big goals into actionable steps, and each step you can track. Don't break the chain. And this is in quotes. My discipline is my freedom. My consistency is my power. I will not break the chain. And end quote. So end of week reflection. How did this week feel as the streak grew? What was the biggest challenge to staying consistent? What is my new commitment for the week to come? And I had a sticky note on this page, and I wrote down a couple of things that I wanted to do, and that I wanted to actually convert this into a PDF so that I can print it for each new week. Going on to the next. Well, actually, that was the chapter 14, the small win tracker, and don't break the chain. Any thoughts or comments there? We're rolling. See, Monifa wrote, build a system you can follow on your worst day, not just your best day. And I see David Gibson was saying, yes, he did read the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective. In fact, Stephen Covey wrote a number of really good books. That's just one of them. In fact, they even started adapting the 7 Habits of Highly Effective Real Estate Agents, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective, and then they wrote different ones that were more customized. So there we are. Well, I'm going to jump right in to chapter 15, and now
Eric,
we're getting yes.
We got Dr. G.W. Parker with us in the.
Ah, yes, sir. You're muted.
I just wanted to comment at the bottom of page 53 when it talks about not breaking the chain. It says, my discipline is my freedom. And let's give real thought to that, right? Because that is so true. Your discipline is your freedom. Because without the discipline, you'll never be free. Because the discipline is going to allow you to do the things that others won't do so that you can have what others won't ever have. And so my consistency is my power. There's strength in that because I'm grinding every day. I'm consistent every day. I'm making the calls. I'm scheduling the appointments. I'm sharing the opportunity. That consistency becomes the strength, right? So that gives me power as an individual. Trying to achieve the goal that I've set for myself, or wanting to achieve the financial stability in my life that I seek. And it just goes back to being able to own your life, control it, and take, you dictate the terms, basically. And that's what we're all after. And isn't that what we all want? And so why are we not there yet? Have we committed ourselves to that level or that degree, right? You think about guys who are highly successful, whether it's an athlete, whether it's a business owner. You sit down with those guys and hear their stories, the discipline that was required, the backstory, the one that you never see, the stories that you're never told. You just see them on the stage, receiving awards or whatever it might be, but nobody understands the work that that person, individual, man or woman, put in to get there. So those are the things that we must find a way to do in order to win, and win on a big scale. I want to own my life. I want the freedom that we speak of in this book, and that we read about, and that we hear about, and that we share, even with the MWR opportunity. The freedom to dictate the terms yourself. Do whatever you want, whenever you want, for as long as you want, with whomever you want. That's control of your life. Anything outside of that, I mean, you're just going through the motions. And how long do we do that? Until we die? Is that what we really want? Or do we begin to own it? So it's you're gonna have to grow some balls, for lack of a better word. But that's what it's gonna take. I mean, you're gonna have to really buckle down. And I'm at that point now, Eric, in my own life. And it all started with the book. And I didn't wait to get motivated. I just made a decision that I was going to finish this work that I'd started. And now that same commitment lies within my business and everything else that I'm doing in my life right now. I'm just on a totally different level right now. And here's how I know it's working, because I'm now able to say no and walk away from things that really don't, move me forward. And it's not been hard to do, and it seems to get easier every day. I've had to, put some people on the sidelines. Says, listen, I'll just catch up with you later, because this time spent with you is not worth it. I'm not getting enough done, and I love these people, and I mean no harm, and no disrespect, but I gotta go now. I've got things that I need to achieve, and it's gonna take a different level and a different mindset in order to do that. And you're not there. So I can't keep hanging out with you and allow you to slow me down. I've got to finish this work. And that's just where we have to be in order to gain a tremendous amount of success in anything that we do. One quick point, Eric. If we go to chapter 15, we'll Fernando, what time does the next session start?
7:45.
Okay, got you.
7:45 would be 10:45 your time.
Right. So it's like 10:15 now, a little bit. But your call on that, guys. But again, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. We got to go ahead and put on the agenda our next book, because we're nearly done here, and we need to be prepared to take a vote on that amongst the group or whomever, anything that you guys wanted to recommend, so that people will have time to purchase the book and be prepared for the next read. But again, we're clipping through this quite fast, and it's going to be over real soon. We don't want to get caught at the last chapter and not have already committed to the next read. But Eric, those are my comments. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for the space that you've allowed me to have this morning. But I would really like to hear from some others as it relates to this issue of discipline and the freedom that it brings. Are we prepared to do what we need to do? Do we have the personal discipline to achieve the greatness that's within all of us?
And thank you, Dr. Parker, for that input, and also for calling it out, right? This isn't just an exercise and entertainment, but this is the goal here is to take something away from the book that makes you better than when you came here. And you bringing the attention to the bottom of that page on that chapter is interesting in also the following way, right? You have on the bottom, near the bottom of page 53, my discipline is my freedom, my consistency is my power, I will not break the chain. That is a great affirmation or mantra to start end to end your day with. I'm probably going to add that to the affirmations that I already use. But I also want to, you talk about consistency. That's page 53. Ladies and gentlemen, go back. And for those of you who weren't with us when we started the book, go back to page 1. Okay. And right in the middle of it, I highlighted it as well, where Dr. Parker wrote, after explaining that the whole the lie that discipline is a prison, there's another quote where he says, real freedom is not the absence of structure, it's the mastery of it. And so, right back to all the examples that we talked about earlier, right? Structure is what makes the Marines, the Army, great corporations, highly successful individuals. Structure is what sets them apart, and they excel like nobody else. And I kind of chuckled a little bit, Dr. Parker, when you said to the people who are slowing you down, I'll catch up with you later. There ain't no catching up. That would be going backwards. So that is a very nice way. That is a nice way of saying adios, goodbye, thank you, I love you, but I'm going up the mountain and I'm not coming back.
I love that, sir.
Eric, I
Fernando.
wanted to, yeah, the Olympics, right? It takes 4 years to get on the Olympics, and everyone that participates, and you can actually see their wins, which is a small, it's something that they've been practicing for 4 years without anybody watching them. And the performance that you see in the Olympics is what's been done through those 4 years and the ones that are taking those medals, right? It's no different with everything else that we do. I think when you understand exactly what your task is, and that's what most people try to deviate in the purpose of negotiation, sales, is the task is simple. It's not complicated, but it takes a lot of discipline and it's painful. And that's why most people are not willing to tolerate the pain of discipline to have the freedom that they choose to have, right? Starting over again. I mean, we were already up of the hill, on top of the hill with the practice company, but starting over again hasn't been an easy task. But all I know is the only friend that I have is my discipline. If I lose track of my discipline, I will lose track of my vision. And that's one thing that I'm not willing to jeopardize. That's why I don't mind starting over again. And it's funny to hear how people always blame sales, right? Oh, I burned out. And then they go back to probably traditional jobs. It's something I cannot afford to do. Honest truth, my objective since starting with this company almost 4 years ago was to be able to make enough and sustain the process of the pain of growing organizations again. And we got there. Once you get there, holding it is another thing. And holding it requires a lot of responsibility, especially if you don't have any other people in your team that understand the task at hand, which is building your list of contacts. That's the repetition of every day until you build momentum again. So discipline is your friend, and eventually momentum will be your best friend after you overcome all the tasks at hand to build strong. That's all I wanted to say, Eric. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with everybody. I love Saturday morning readings, especially when I hear you, Dr. G.W. Parker, and the many readers that have been with us. I learn from each and every one of you guys. You guys are all awesome.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a great point. And it reminds me, Monifa put in the chat also the book that we brought up a few weeks ago, the 12-week year. I happen to be right now devouring that book, picking it apart. Just imagine being able to accomplish what most people do in a year, do it in just 12 weeks. And in that book, ironically, Fernando, the author talks about the Olympic champion didn't become a champion on the day that he stood up on the podium to receive his medal. He became a champion probably not 4 years ago, but 10 years ago or 20 years ago, when they dedicated and committed to doing the things that a champion does. And that's when they really became the champion. When they stood on the podium, that's when it was realized and publicized. But that person, that champion, be it a swimmer, a runner, or whatever their event was, became a champion. And so the same thing with us, you don't need an Olympic podium to become a champion in life, to be a great father, to be a great husband, to be a great entrepreneur. It all starts with this whole concept of structure. And it's the structure. And when you have a good structure, you realize that it is freedom, and it's what allows you to do all of the things that you want to do. Because ultimately, that comment, and I think it was Dr. Parker who said it, that what is the ultimate goal in life? Okay, it wasn't to get a job. It wasn't to go to work 40 hours a week, 40 years of your life, now probably 58 years of your life, in order to give away all of your time, to build someone else's dream. Ultimately, what we want to have is get to the point where we have enough investments or savings and or a business that pays us regardless of our time. I'll be talking about this in my radio show this week, because that's the new theme. Is they say that time is money, but time is actually much, much more than money. You see, you can lose money and you can make it back. You lose time, you can never make it back. And that's why, this whole idea of being on purpose, having structure, having commitments is, really golden. And that is, what generates the action and all the activity is what generates the excitement. So when Dr. Parker wrote the book and said, get excited or stay broke forever, what he's really saying is get busy, right? Get active or stay broke forever. So any other, I see Ron, you've got your hand up. Go ahead. In fact, Dr. Parker, I'm not even going to take a vote. We're coming close to the bottom of the hour, so we have time for comments, but I'm not going to dive into another chapter because I think that next chapter, which is, the 90-day, will require more time than we have right now. So Ron, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. It really comes, for me, it comes with really first choosing to make a decision of what I really want in life or in this chore, so to speak. I hate to call it a chore, chosen desire. But you got to make that decision first. Then comes the commitment to follow through with the decision. And I'm basing this on what I really need to do in my life is first, Jeepers, Georgia, Ron, make the decision, choose, and then make the decision to actually commit to doing at least one or two steps in my chosen path this day without fail, with the commitment on it. Just want to say the decision and a choice.
That's right. The decision is where everything starts, and the decision doesn't take motivation. The decision just requires a decision.
Exactly.
to make it. You don't need tools, you don't need anything. You just have to make the decision. It's an excellent point, Ron.
And one other part of that is sometimes I get, and probably others, get overwhelmed. You just you got such a big goal in your life. You get overwhelmed with what to do next. Well, it almost doesn't matter, just so long as you do at least one easiest step to get the momentum going. Nothing happens until something moves. Done.
The journey of 1,000 miles begins with
a step.
One step. So listen, I want to thank Ron Copeland for the comments. I want to thank David Gibson for participating. I want to thank Martha for everything she does in promoting our reading, our entrepreneurs time. I want to thank Jameson Rowe, Lynn Casamayar, Gibbs for being here, Richard Greer, Barry Fleet, Deborah Holmes, Eric Wilner, my father, about to turn 90 years old, and here he is hanging out with a bunch of entrepreneurs. God bless you. Francesca Oliveras, Leticia Lovey, M. Slaughter for participating, Monifa for participating, Rich, Rob Clay, and Yolanda. 21 people were on our call today. That is, a sign that our group is growing, that that what we're doing is meaningful. The books that we read are meaningful, and that's why 21 people come every morning. Imagine if next week we each all invited one, we would have 42 people on the call, which would be amazing. And we would have some amazing comments and discussions. So with that being said, I'm going to pass the baton back to our dedicated leader, our consistent leader, Mr. Fernando Ramirez. Thanks for the opportunity to read. Oh, one other thing before I go. I know that we had in our leadership meeting last week a volunteer to be the reader for next week. But I would like to challenge any one of the 20 people that are on today's Zoom to put in the chat that you would like to be one of the future readers. and then we'll contact you about that. But I'd love to see a couple of names raise their hand, say, I'll read. And on that note, over to you, Fernando.
Eric, thank you so much once again. Happy birthday. I know it's your birthday weekend, and you gave us your jewels today, your time, which is the most precious thing that anyone can give. And we really, really, really appreciate that so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard this morning's reading. I'm inspired. I'm about to go make my calls, and I'm going to pop up the screen here for everybody to see what we have and who we have in our events today. It looks like we have Mr. Richard Greer as our presenter of today, Mr. David Gibson as a trainer today. So I got my notepad ready. So we're gonna stop the recording, and I see that there's 20 of us. I don't see why we couldn't all come together and bring one more person each so we can double the numbers, because if we are learning and giving the time of leadership and support, we got to make them proud and pack the event. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stay here, play some music, stop the recording, and we should be back in about 13 minutes. And as our presenter shows up, he opens up the camera, and he'll be ready to present for us. So thanks again, leaders, for allowing us your time and your space. We're going to do our due diligence right now and get the work done and bring some guests. All right. We'll see you all in a few minutes.